Well, hello and welcome to a Q&A for the Colorado Dragon Boat Film Festival. My name is Sara Moore, and I am the Executive Director for the nonprofit Colorado Dragon Boat, and we host Colorado's only all-Asian and Asian American film festival in partnership with Denver Film. And today I am honored to be interviewing filmmaker Tom Huang, and he is an award-winning writer and director. And we are excited to be featuring his film, The Loyal Betrayal, this year in our short films showcase. So welcome, Tom.
Hey,
Um, Thank you so much for joining us. And I
yeah.
was hoping we can just start off by having you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little summary of the film.
Okay. I'm Tom Huang, like you said, indie filmmaker. My film is called The Loyal Betrayal. It's a short film based on a feature script that we have. That's basically a film noir set in the Japanese internment camps in Manzanar during World War II. And it's a very stylistic. We're really trying to stick to the style of the old school film noirs of the 30s and 40s. Except now it's just starring Asian Americans. So that's pretty much what we have.
Awesome. Well, this year for our film festival, our theme is representation. So
Yes.
we are boldly highlighting AAPI community members in cinema. So that kind of starts off my first question. If you wouldn't mind just going into a little bit of detail on your background as a filmmaker, how did you get into the industry? What is your passion for it? And then also if you've run into any hurdles or roadblocks being Asian American in the industry.
Wow. I think I just run into a lot of roadblocks just trying to be an indie filmmaker. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of so I'll rewind. I went to UCLA a long time ago, and I started out thinking I wanted to be an actor. And UCLA, even at the time that I was there, was about 60% Asian. And so even then, I would go to these auditions, and there wouldn't be any parts for me. There'd be there's a series like 51 act plays. They always had open auditions at the beginning of each year, and I found there may be like two or three things I could audition for, and some of them involved as being a butler or a small part or something. And it was after that that I realized that, like, if I really wanted to get involved in the industry as an Asian American, that would have to create our own, like my own stories and my own scripts. And so I ended up going into creative writing and started thinking I want to be a writer director. So after UCLA, I actually went to Loyola Marymount University Film School, graduate program, and that really made me realize that, yeah, this is what I want to do. I want to make movies. And so I made my first feature out of LMU, a small indie feature called Freshmen, about 4 diverse freshmen in their first quarter in school. And the response was so strong that I was just like, wow, people are looking for these kind of stories. And it went to dozens of festivals and got all these awards, got a great write-up on LA Times and Variety. And I thought, okay, here we go. Here's my career, let's get started. And nothing. I maybe met with a few managers. Most of them are crazy. A couple of them were like legit, but just, didn't work out. And that's when I realized, wow, it's like, I still got to push forward. And that's kind of how I got into the indie filmmaking world, is that, the kind of stories that I want to tell was not the kind of stories that, like, Hollywood was necessarily looking for, especially when I was starting out. And then from that, I actually ended up writing for television for a few years, network television. There was a lot of initiatives looking for diverse writers. And so there people like my writing, and I started there. And I have to say that, like, for the most part, people are very open in the television industry, for diversity. And even though it's still a problem, it's gotten better. But people are definitely trying to find ways. And I think it all starts with people of color actually writing the shows and running the shows. We're finally getting to that point now with a lot of shows, especially with the onset of streaming. But I found that, the shows that I was on still, like, wasn't like, I did a lot of sitcoms. And so I found that it was fun, but I wanted to tell, like, real stories, get into more like kind of dramedy kind of things. And that's when I started going back to indie filmmaking. And so since then, I've made a couple more indie features, all with diverse casts. And my last one was Find Me, which came out a couple years ago. And it's about a Asian American guy who's chasing a girl who leaves clues for him in national parks across the West. And I just kind of made the film just thinking I just need to make a film because I was waiting for another film to get off the ground. And the response to it was just amazing, incredible. It exploded on streaming on Amazon Prime. We were able to make our budget back, which is incredible for a small indie film like mine. And it just made me see again that people are really hungry for diverse stories. And that kind of comes around to, why I ended up making The Loyal Betrayal.
Yeah, and I have been able to see Find Me. That's actually, we met in person
Yes.
2 years ago now, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing film. Thank you so much for making that. Not only are you showcasing diversity in film, but also diversity in the outdoors, which I think has been lacking in the past few years. So thank you for creating that. And as someone who's pretty active and adventurous outdoors, it's really awesome to see diversity out there
Yeah,
on the film.
for sure.
And
Thank you.
you acted in that as well, didn't you?
Yeah, like I said, I always kind of love acting, but I've always kind of put my all my efforts into writing and directing because that's a lot of work as it is. So I've always acted in my other films, but for this film, I thought I wasn't going to do it. But we decided we're going to make it micro budget, and because of the budget, it just seemed to make more sense to instead of paying an actor to carry him around different national parks, it's have me just do it. And plus I wrote the role, so it's someone close to my own personality. So it was, I didn't try to stretch myself. I let the other actors around me do all the heavy lifting. So I think that helped, making it work for sure.
Well, it's definitely a fantastic film. Is it still available on Amazon Prime?
Yeah, it is for rental and download. We moved it from Amazon Prime streaming to IMDb TV streaming for free. So actually, it's on a lot of free streaming streamers right now, like IMDb TV, Roku TV, Tubi TV. But they have commercials, of course. So if everyone really wants to see it, I prefer you to see it. Just rent it for like $3 on Amazon or iTunes or Google. But if you really don't want to spend the money, yeah, it still looks great on those free streamers too.
Awesome. Yeah, I highly recommend that film. It's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And speaking of amazing films, The Loyal Betrayal, I absolutely loved for multiple reasons. It's a great film, but also it's kind of close to my heart. My family has a history with internment camps. My grandfather was a Nisei during the World War II time, so he actually he was interned in Tule Lake up in California. So
Wow.
I'm pretty familiar with the time frame and the topic of internment camps. But I was hoping maybe you could go into a little detail on why you chose to highlight this specific topic.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's amazing to hear about your grandfather getting through that. It was. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Um, it, for people who don't know, like Tule Lake was a particular camp that also housed what the government considered dissidents. So it was also a section of it that was very, very hard for people. It was hard enough to concentration camps. So that's amazing to hear. So I always wanted to make an American period piece with Asian Americans, being Asian Americans. Not I think there are of course amazing immigrants who have done things in America, but I wanted to do something about Americans who didn't have an accent. They were American, first or second generation in a period piece, and kind of like show that side of real Americans who just happen to be Asians. Doing something for America. And so, the history of America, it's been dominated obviously by, Caucasians, but also, civil rights, African Americans and Blacks, which is great. And so, but it was so hard finding a story that I could just wrap my head around. And so I actually went on off chance driving up in California to the Manzanar concentration camp. And for the longest time, it was just an empty, just plot of land. And back in 2003, they actually put a visitor center there and did reenactments of the barracks and reenactments of the guard towers and the fences and everything. And I went there, and it just blew me away. I think we all think it's pretty terrible what happened with the Japanese internment camps, but you don't really realize, how real it is until you sit there in the middle of the desert and sit in the barrack and just like look at what, these people were put into. And also in the visitor center, which is very large, it does a really good, thorough job of showing what life was like during then, including how when Japanese Americans first came in, they actually had tags put on their wrists or clipped them like their shopping items, and it was really horrifying. And I happened also to just bring my kids along, who were very young at the time, and it really hit them at home as well. And putting the tag on them and looking at them, and so I looked at all these pictures of all these Japanese Americans, and it just hit me that they just look like Americans from the 40s, just like all the 40s movies you watch, the same kind of fashions, the styles, the way they spoke, except that, they obviously were just, they were obviously put in these camps because of their race. And that made me think, yeah, if I want to do something about a period of piece about Asian Americans, this is like the perfect way to do it, in the way that I was thinking. And another thing I was thinking too when I was there is that, there was just a lot of just despair, I can imagine, and just darkness for people that had to, they were forced to stay at these places, lose their homes, lose all their money and all the stuff they worked for, just because they were Japanese American. And that's the same kind of like nihilistic themes and dark themes in film noir. And so I just felt like, wow, if we can make a film noir set in here, it just seemed like the perfect match. And so that's really what inspired me to start writing it. And I'm happy to be Chinese American. And so even though I know that these, the things from the camp like really hit me, and I could research it and tell the stories, I really felt like I needed a Japanese American, someone who was really familiar with that, someone like you, who have family who have been through it. And so I brought along my writer, producer, director friend, Koji Sakai. He's done a lot of work with the Japanese American Museum here in Los Angeles, and also has done a lot of diverse producing and writing. Just because I just feel like, I just need someone to make it a little more legit and understand like what was going on then and what's going on with people now. And he just told me a lot of stuff about the politics of those camps, and that still lasts today in families. That still divide Japanese American families today that I had no idea. Especially between the Nisei and the Issei. Kind of divide, and Japanese Americans that were like they considered themselves patriots and thought this was all great, and Japanese Americans who knew that this was wrong and didn't want to stand up for it. So those are things that I put into the actual feature script that it doesn't really play out in the short because we had enough time. But those are little things like that I learned from him that I don't think I could ever understand just by research.
Yeah, well, it's a wonderful film. So thank you so much for creating that. Because, like you said, there's not many films that depict this point in history. Most people actually don't grow up learning about that time frame. I only learned about it because my family was affected by it. But this film does a wonderful job at educating people on what happened during that time frame and internment camps and what they were. And I think you're absolutely right. I've actually gone to Heart Mountain, which is an internment camp or concentration camp up in Wyoming. I haven't been to Tule Lake yet. It's on my list for a pilgrimage. But going to Heart Mountain was absolutely just heartbreaking to see the conditions that these Americans were put in during this time, and it really is hard to kind of understand what that feeling is. But I did get that feeling when I watched your film. So thank you so much for creating that. And I think creating it as a noir was just absolutely perfect. Like you mentioned, it really just fit really well. For those of us who don't necessarily know what noir is, or can you go into a little bit more detail on noir and why you chose that for this film?
Sure. I think a lot of people are familiar with film noir as like kind of the hard-boiled detective, like maybe Humphrey Bogart, the iconic roles that he played with the jacket and the hat. It kind of started in Germany in like the 30s, and then it really took off as a genre in America. With a film called Double Indemnity, which was a film about a insurance salesman who tries to has a murder does this murder plot with this femme fatale to like make some money, and it goes awry, of course. And it just has I don't know, it became really popular in the 30s and 40s, and so that's why it became, it was actually they were actually made really cheaply. And once it got popular, then it became a regular genre, and it's kind of grown into like this idea of a kind of maybe mystery thriller kind of film, with the male protagonist who's kind of like either down his luck or a tough guy, and then the classic femme fatale, a beautiful woman who like leads him astray, and it always turns into some sort of very twisted, convoluted plot. But a lot of these themes involve like kind of nihilistic and dark situations. It kind of ends up exploring like the darkness of human nature, mixed with like a thriller or a mystery. And it's kind of evolved into like, different styles of noir, what they call it, where it's not black and white anymore, but they still have very stylistic lighting, and the same kind of themes and the same kind of stock characters. And a lot of people love those old films, and so they try to do their spin on it, with different kind of movies. I'm trying to think what the latest. I mean, every year there's always like one or two film noirs, type of like mysteries or thrillers that come out. Yeah, I wish I could think of one. I'm blanking now, but it's definitely something that people do love to do. So that's what the kind of film that I want to make. But what I really want to do was make it look like an old classic 30s 40s noir, like old Humphrey Bogart kind of film, in the way that people talk and the kind of themes, and the kind of style of mystery, but just set it in the Japanese internment camp, and like just use a internment camp as a background for a noir, but also start a conversation, like you said, about internment camps, that people that maybe not are educated about it can actually learn more about it. But if they really thought the film was interesting. I think that like that I was really inspired by too was the show Watchmen, on HBO. I don't know if you watched that at all. It's based on a comic book, but the show opens with this massacre that happens in Tulsa in the 1920s, and it's a black neighborhood, a black affluent neighborhood that gets attacked by white nationalists that murder everybody there and destroy it all. And you watch and you're like, oh, this is like some sort of made up thing. And you find out later that this is real. Like what happened there was real. There was a real massacre that happened then. And I'd never learned about it in history, and I'm sure a lot of other people didn't know about it. I know that a lot of African Americans actually did know about it because it's part of their history. But it's something we didn't learn. And it was this TV show that I watched. It got me to learn about this. Maybe it was a dramatization of it, but it got me to research and learn more about it. And so that's what I hope that happened with this film too, is like show a little bit of what these people went through, and then let people that watch it, explore and find out more about it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that this film definitely does that. It piques interest, and you're like, oh wow, this actually happened, and you can, yeah, like you said, research it and find out more about it, and then even go visit an incarceration camp site, which is very powerful. Definitely.
That's a good point. Actually, I should put something in the end credits, so people can find more information about it. Like I didn't even think, I forgot to do that. That's something I should have. So people watch end credits, they could like immediately like put something up there so people can find some place to go to if they want to find out more.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We'll put that up on our website, on your page as well, so
Oh,
people
that's
can
awesome.
kind of click and see where they can go next. Man, I feel like I could just talk to you for hours, especially about this film. But unfortunately, we don't have as much time.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to end with a few more questions. Just wondering what you're working on now. Obviously, I'm sure COVID has created a few hiccups in the creation of some films, but would love to hear what we can expect from you next. And then also, if anybody who's listening wants to get in contact with you, the best way to reach out.
Okay. This I'm working on right now. I'm in pre-production for my next feature film called Dealing with Dad. It's about a woman who has to go back home and deal with her dad, who's become depressed, but he's also a jerk. So he's actually nicer depressed than well. So it's the family trying to figure out if they actually want to get him better. It's based on my own experiences with trying to get my dad out of depression. And it's a dramedy. So it's actually the film that I was trying to get off the ground when I decided to write Find Me, because it was going really slow. But finally, we got some momentum behind us. We have some great producers behind us, like Effie Brown is executive producing. Guys like Brian Yang and Alan Powell. These are Asian American indie filmmakers who have done some really great stuff in Sundance and South by Southwest. We're, like you said, COVID has slowed things down, but we're targeting to shoot like in April or May, and we're casting right now. And we have some people attached that we're really excited about. So that's the one thing that I'm really working on now. And then there's also a feature version of the Loyal Betrayal. Our goal is to actually get that shot. I think the script needs a few more drafts, a few more rewrites, but we really want to shoot this short to show people as a proof of concept, like what it would look like, what it would feel like. I think I'm really happy to say that, when I saw it on screen, it looks like exactly what I was thinking. It's exciting to see. I love black and white film, so that's the other thing that I'm working on. And if you want to get in contact with me, you can go to www.ctomgo.com. That's my website. That's SEETOMGO.com. There's a contact number, contact button there. You can click on, and I'll get the email. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Tom Huang Film, at Tom Huang Film. So you go there and you can contact me through there as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And actually, I went ahead and put your website on our website. So if anybody is interested, you can find it on our website and click and get connected with you. But that sounds absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for your time today.
Sure.
I am hoping that next year for our film festival, we might be in person, and then maybe we can have you come down, and hopefully we can maybe feature Dealing with Dad, which is, it sounds like an absolutely amazing film and very much needed in the AAPI community. Mental health isn't necessarily something that is discussed often. So thank you for doing this, and I know that it's close to your heart, dealing with family issues. So thank you for sharing. I think we need more of that. That's what storytelling and cinema is all about. But thank you again so much for your time today, and we really look forward to working with you in the future.
Yes, thanks for having me. Thanks again for showing my film.